I'm like, what does the Bible have to say about makeup?
Good question.
Can we read
The
some
best
scripture
question.
about makeup in the Bible? So I'm looking these up and I'm like,
yeah.
okay, let's find some scriptures. So the first one that actually came to mind was a passage in Enoch. You want to read that one?
Real
Nathan?
quick, First Enoch
Yes.
is a text that used to be considered scripture for many, many generations. However, it's moderately controversial to some humans out there. Don't worry, we're not afraid of controversy at all. The Reynolds tribe, or the Lindenite tribe, or the Millenite tribe. Don't worry. So, First Enoch, though, gives us some insight as to where the practice of makeup began. Because, as you can tell, one of the most important things that Chelsea asked in that entire narrative was, what are the origins of this? Why do I do this, right? Why is it that she, first of all, felt the pressure to put that on? That's a good question that each and every one of you needs to answer. Why do we do what we do? Because if you aren't willing to observe, which is not just looking, like looking is one thing, observing is different. Observing is considering and pondering and chewing on what it is that you happen to be seeing or noticing. And when you suddenly start to notice the way of the world in contrast to the way of the scriptures, your eyes are actually opened. But before that, there is scales that are put over our eyes, very strategic scales. And that came through the woman. The woman, real quick, before we go to the angels, which is further on in the story, deceiving mankind, we need to start with the dragon's first deception. And it started by targeting the eyes of the woman. And it's foundational, that the roots and the origins of where these strongholds are built out of, we're looking at the fruit. Chelsea's talking about the fruit of a strongholds, a tree that was planted, a different kind of tree that was planted in the garden, that the woman was deceived and seduced and enticed to taste of. And because of that, my wife here, thousands of years later, is dealing with contending against those same fruits growing up in her life instead of the fruits of righteousness that she should be bearing forth. So now, Genesis 3. Now the serpent, or the dragon, was more subtle than any beast of the field which Yahuwah Elohim had made. And he said unto the woman, Yea, has Elohim said, You shall not eat of every tree of the garden? And the woman said unto the serpent, We may eat of the fruit of the trees of the garden, but of the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, Elohim has said, You shall not eat it, neither shall ye touch it, lest you die. And the serpent said to the woman, You shall not surely die, for Elohim knows that in the day you eat of it, then your eyes shall be opened. You shall be as Elohim, knowing good and evil. And when the woman saw that the tree was good for food, and that it was pleasant to the eyes, and a tree to be desired to make one wise, she took of the fruit and ate, and gave also unto her husband, or man, and he ate. And the eyes of both of them were open, and they knew that they were naked. And so they sewed fig leaves together like a mask, and made themselves apron. The root of this is coming out of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, which the woman beheld, she gazed upon, and was enticed. Now, for a clear distinction, it says in James chapter 1 that the Father never entices us. The Father never entices us, but it is only our desires that will entice us. James chapter 1, Blessed is the man that endures temptation, for when he is tested, he shall receive the crown of life, which Yahuwah has promised to them that love him. Let no man say when he is tempted that I am tempted of Elohim, for Elohim cannot be tempted with evil, neither tempts he any man. But every man is tempted when he's drawn away of his own lust and enticed. Then, when lust has conceived, it brings forth sin, and sin, when it's finished, brings forth death. Do not err, my beloved brethren, for every good gift and perfect gift is from above and comes down from the Father of lights, with whom there is no darkness nor shadow of turning. For of his own will he begat us with the word of truth, that we should be of a kind of first fruits for his creatures. Therefore let every man be swift to hear, slow to speak, slow to wrath. For the wrath of man works not the righteousness of Elohim. So lay apart all filthiness and abundance of wickedness, and receive with meekness the engrafted word which is able to save your souls. But be doers of the word, and not hearers only, deceiving your own selves. For if any man hears the word and is not a doer, he's like a man who beheld his face in a mirror. For when he beholds himself, he goes his way and forgets the man he was. But whosoever looks into the perfect Torah of liberty and continues therein shall not be a forgetful hearer, but a doer of the work. This man shall be blessed in his deed.
Wow.
The roots that we need to deal with here are planted there in the garden, but then these watchers that came down from heaven in Genesis 6 tells us this narrative of what led up to the flood. Why the Father literally had to wipe the face of the earth and wash it with water, because it had been defiled, made into a different image. It had been transfigured. And this is what mirrors will do. If you notice when you look at a mirror, you see the inverse. If you hold up your right hand, you'd see the left hand. You see the opposite side being presented. If you write words normally this way, when you hold it up to a mirror, they're backwards. The mirror transforms things. It takes what is reality and changes it into an inverse thing. It is a forced duality so that you see something differently than as it truly is, because a mirror cannot totally show you the truth. It will show you an image that is not absolute truth. Truth is established by as it's been written. Truth is not established by what the mirror shows you. However, the mirror has its foundations, and it tells us in 1st Enoch where the mirrors came from. Azazel, chapter 8 of 1st Enoch says, Azazel, this is one of the watchers, the angels that descended down and mingled with women and launched the destruction of injecting angels' DNA into mankind, but they also revealed the secrets that should have been kept from mankind to mankind. Azazel taught men to make swords, knives, shields, breastplates, the fabrication of mirrors, the workmanship of bracelets and ornaments, the use of paint for the beautifying of the eyes, stones of every valuable, select kinds, all sorts of dye, so that the world became altered. Fornication multiplied. They transgressed and corrupted all their ways. Makeup, the beautification of the eyes, and mirrors come from a transformer. In the New Testament, we hear this phrase, marvel not that the devil transforms himself as to an angel of light, and his servants, his apostles, do likewise. That word there is metaskizmanzatoi, transformer. They're the transformers, these angels that can come down and transform themselves to look like what you want them to be. This is the characteristic of an angel of light, who at his true character and nature is a beast, is a dragon. Sorry, the beast, they're distinct. He's a dragon in his true form, and yet he presents himself to the world by shifting who he is, by being a chameleon, by presenting the world a mask. He and the angels that were conformed to that image, the Father says, be not conformed to the pattern of this world, but rather be transformed to the renewing of your mind. Different word for transformation there. These transformers have seduced men by transforming them to look like something they're not currently. And men were guilty of this just as much as the women are, because there's a reason they market for us to dye our beards or cut our hair into a certain fashion sense, or make sure that we shave off our faces every single day,
or
that we dye your hair, or that, men, you have to wear a hat because you're going bald, right? Because that's something I have seen in so many men, that you wear hats to hide your head. And the reality is the Father knows every hair upon your head. And we talk about these things like we believe them, but when we go to actually walk them out, we find ourselves in stumbling blocks. We're running into the stumbling block because, once again, you guys, we are running into the sift of vanity. Like, Chelsea and I love treasure hunting, you guys. Notice that beautiful collection of fighting conch shells of every size and configuration. We love it. And you cannot treasure hunt without sifting. You have